The Chicago Bears win again and another definitive victory against the Cincinnati Bengals, where Caleb Williams and the starters got an entire half of action. The defense looked great, and there's all kinds of other things that happened that Nick and I are ready to take you through. It's all coming at you on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bear With Us, a Chicago Bears podcast hosted by yours truly, Robert Schmitz, right here alongside my co-host, Nick Whalen. I'm of DBB, the Bears blog, the editor-in-chief. Nick is a contributor at Football Guys, and we are here to bring you the best Bears podcast we possibly can. Nick, how you feeling after this last game?
I mean, the Bears are the only 3-0 team in the NFL, right?
Hey, there it is. There it is.
You know? I mean, there's just so much to talk about, and it's a lot of it's excitement, but me and you, we're going to be picky about some stuff, and I'm going to bring up something right away that I'm sure everyone's talking about, Robert, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Torrey Taylor was wearing gloves holding. I don't know how I feel about that. When spinning, you know, the stickum on the glove, well, how do you think about that?
Okay, so you intended to start the show off with a joke, and you have supercharged me because I want to talk about how all kinds of people thought it was a ridiculously stupid pick to take a punter in the fourth round. The Bears' first three drives, all 3 and outs. The first drive, Torrey Taylor punted from his own end zone, and granted, with the help of a penalty, took the ball from 5 yards deep in his own end zone and started the Bengals off at the 20. No points. Then the Bears go 3 and out again. Torrey Taylor, 50-yard bomb. Bengals start at the 12. No points. Then the Bears go 3 and out again. And granted, the third punt from Torrey was only so decent. He ends up booting it. It gets returned a little net punt yard of like 36 yards, and the Bears have to make a bona fide stop. But Nick, we talked about this on the show immediately afterwards. This was, unironically, I know it's a preseason, a great display of how a field flipping punter can be the difference between ending up with 3, sometimes more points off the board that better field position probably would have helped the Bengals achieve. It's very obvious to me. I don't want to be that guy, but especially when you compare Torrey Taylor's net yard punt. I don't know if you saw this, Nick. So Torrey Taylor finished counting the 57-yard punt as a 57-yard punt and not tagging on penalty yardage. He finishes with a 47.6 net yards per punt. And as a reminder, Trenton Gill finished last year with 38 net yards per punt. So the difference is an entire first down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and remember, I did that study, and it was for every net yard you get over a season, you know, they generally consider that like 3 points.
I think so.
So you add that, you know, all those yards together, and you're looking at, you know, you think of like the Browns game or, you know, all those other games. If you add in, let's just say 6 points, that's at least one more win. The other thing too, Robert, I noticed with him is I always get fascinated with how they hold the ball, because sometimes they're like kicking the point, and sometimes because they're like different, you know,
there's all kinds of punting tech.
I don't think he's even getting all of it on it. Sometimes he's like, oh man, this one's only a 50. Like I have to like take some off. Like he's got a leg, man. Do you notice that?
Yes, he crushed the 57-yarder. It did not look hard for him. If anything, it was a pretty bad rep by the Gunners, because the Gunners got stuffed immediately. And without the help of the face mask, that had a 24-yard return on it. But much better to be dealing with the punter, I think, that's out kicking the coverage and demanding that the coverage play a little bit better than the punter that, like we had last year. I'm so sorry, Miller. I know you're probably listening to the podcast, and I really don't mean anything negative about you, the person, but you, the punter. We left so much meat on the bone, and there are going to be games. Can I just say this out loud, Nick? There are going to be games with a rookie quarterback where the offense is going to struggle. Whether they struggle early, coming out of the half, 3 bad reps, you're going to need your punter to be the difference at least 1 or 2 games throughout the season. And so to see that Torrey very early is an asset that is already returning value, I think that's a really fun little thing to see.
And it's also in a bad draft class, y'all. Okay, not just like a regular 4th round pick. This is a 4th round pick in a bad draft class that you got a difference maker. And in the end, I don't care, Robert, if it's a fullback, if it's a tight end, if it's a guard or a center or whatever position that people don't value, having an asset in all of the positions versus having a, deficiency is going to help you win more football games. And that's all I care about.
Man, it's funny you say that. Talking about an asset in a bad draft class, you gave me such a layup segue. I can't not take it. We're burying the lead at this point because we have to talk about Caleb in the offense. But you gave me the perfect path to segue
Mhm.
to Austin Booker
Yep.
continuing to impress preseason game after preseason game after preseason game. Look, I can't say for sure that Austin's going to do anything relevant in this upcoming season. It would be historically extremely rare for Austin Booker, 5th round pick, to get 2.5 sacks. If he picks up 2.5 sacks
Right.
in this next season, that would be unbelievably unusual. But man, right now, the guy has a nose for the football. He
Mhm.
seems like he is a pain to block. And when you
Yep.
do block him, he's fast enough to basically convert his rep into a QB spy kind of role that cuts down on rushers or quarterbacks that try to escape out the pocket. He is doing a good job. And
Yep.
sure, there's plenty to be gained in his run defense. But when you can rush the passer, man, it starts to make you wonder, okay, edge rushers historically, for those who don't know, after the 4th round, you get almost nothing out of drafting an edge rusher. So
Most time after the second round, you don't get much.
truly, so you start to look at Booker and it's like, what do the Bears have in this guy? And
I
how did
know.
the NFL really let him bleed
Did
that
you
far
see this
down?
on tape, Robert? Did you see this player on tape?
I don't think I saw this. I
No.
mean, it was one thing to say he's trying all kinds of moves, but
Mhm.
I love the Big 12. I'm a Baylor grad. It's the Big 12. It's not SEC prime time. So
Mhm.
some of it working and that kind of play level, you say to yourself, yeah, but when you get to the NFL, is any of this going to really matter? Man, he stepped up in a big way. Big
Yeah.
way.
Like, I didn't see this amount of juice. I didn't see this amount of effort. Honestly, that's a big part of it for me, or like long arms. Like, as long as you keep trying. And I'm glad you brought this up because I actually wrote this down because I saw this on film. I'm not sure if you did. So they started playing him more with, the starters or even,
Mhm.
backups. Like he's moving
They
up in
got him
units,
some
y'all.
run early in the game.
Yeah. And I wrote it down because I thought this was interesting. They had some sub packages, Robert, that was fascinating. So from left to right, okay, they had Montez Sweat, Dexter, Walker kicked inside, and Booker. And I was like, ooh, that's like a nice pass rushing unit, right? You get Billings off, get him to rest up for, his run stuffing. And I mean, he can still get after the passer, but you need to take somebody out. And then, Robert, they had from left to right a different, just I don't know, whatever, just a different scheme or different package. They had TJ Edwards, Booker, Dex over the center, Walker, and then Sweat all around the right side. So they changed it up and they had even Booker inside. And it's not that it was all effective or not that, oh, this is going to be it. It's just that they're trying to put these guys in different spots to have them advantageous positions. And that's what coaching is, Robert. When you're like, hey, you hear this all the time. What does this guy do well? Let's put him in this spot so we can do the things that he does well more often than the things he doesn't do well. And that's what they're trying to figure out. That's kind of what preseason is really all about.
One other thing that I think is really fun when you talk about Dexter in particular, Dexter, a little bit of Billings, but mostly Dexter, can rush from the 1 technique position, can rush from the 3 technique position, and we know he can rush from the 5 technique position. For those who don't know what I just said, that's to say, Dexter can rush directly at the center. He can rush at the guard, in between the center and the guard. He can also rush as a defensive end towards the tackle, potentially curling towards the guard as he goes. And so that versatility, Nick, lets you do all kinds of things with him on the interior. And the other thing that I think is worth talking about with Flus, we are always so focused on how he likes big defensive ends. He has also always really appreciated a smaller, true outside linebacker that can drop into coverage. And kudos to Booker. I think he's the best linebacker on the roster at it. He looks quick when he's in coverage space. When he drops off the line to set up for a nickel blitz, Booker looks dangerous, at least when he's taking up that quick shallow that you see all kinds of checkdowns go to. And
Mhm.
so I'm not saying that Booker is going to start or get too crazy with this. But we saw just how effective Kyler Gordon is as a blitzer. That's not an accident. He has great blitz timing. And so
Mhm.
having a player like Booker, and this is where you start to wonder, okay, are the Bears going to sign Yannick Ngakoue, or are they getting so much out of Booker that
Right.
they can just keep that money in their pocket? I truly don't know the answer. I don't think much of Ngakoue, but I could understand if they felt the need to just have another veteran in the room. But Booker right now is firing so well on so many cylinders that he's just a massive overperformer right now. What does that mean for the regular season? Gotta be so clear. We don't know. All we can tell you
I
is what
mean
he's doing in preseason.
I mean, to me, it's not even just Booker, because Booker's playing the best out of the group, but you also have Hardy, who's just like,
Yes,
again, undersized, doesn't have as much athleticism or length,
he's
but
good for
like,
2 sacks and a turnover a game at this
yeah,
point.
spin moves. I mean, effort there. I mean, again, Robinson is bulked up and has done better too. And we're not even talking about Jacob Martin, who hasn't even played. So to
Jacob
me,
Martin's
like
not going to
that,
make this team, dude. And
I,
that's not me hating. It's more me saying so many guys have played so well that I find it hard to believe that they will keep Martin off of just what he was once. That's again, maybe the Bears make a completely different decision because Martin just wowed them in yesteryear's tape. But Nick, if I'm a coach, I'm seeing enough out of the guys that I have that unless Martin comes off the bike and especially over the next 17-ish days really shows me something, there are guys on this roster that have. You know what I mean?
you think Hardy beats him out?
I don't know. I couldn't tell
Okay.
you because they still drafted Dominique Robinson. I'm a huge
Mhm.
believer in draft pick status breaks ties. And I wouldn't be surprised if Eric Washington, being a coach, right? They're the kinds of guys that love to say, yeah, we put him on our practice squad last year. He got a lot better. We developed him because we're just those guys.
Oh
You
yeah.
you give
No,
us
that's
any of these balls of clay and
sure.
we're going to
Yeah.
develop them.
No, I'm with you there.
But I don't know.
So one other thing in terms of, and I know we're, again, burying the lead with Caleb, but you talked about linebackers, and I saw a couple of things I just have to discuss. So, I mean, we all know, our top two guys. There was a play where they pulled the guard, and again, this is like super big within play action. You pull the guard, and the linebackers jump up, and you throw it right behind them. The guard pulled, and Tremaine Edmonds is just staring at it and doesn't move. Because I don't know if he like sees that and then he looks in the backfield and he's like, nope, that's a pass, and bails out. And they threw, I think that was that to the tight end underneath him, and they rallied and he got like 5 yards. But I was like, dude, I'm proud of you. Like that was like, except that's the hardest thing. Brady did that all the time. Manning did that all the time. Like when you pull the guards in that play action game, it's so hard because a lot of the time it's like, oh, the linemen stand up, it's easy, it's a pass. But when you're pulling guys, the natural instinct is you have to get downhill and get into that run game. And that was really good. The other one is, man, Micah Baskerville is playing well.
I'm
Like,
telling you.
I'm wondering if Noah Sewell makes the team because Baskerville, I know he had the pick six last week, but man, he shot that gap this week, undercut the lineman, and buried the running back in the backfield. I was like, oh, that was nice.
I've liked Baskerville since we saw him last year. I mean, he's got great coverage instincts, really does. And
Mhm.
the ideal kind of guy to keep around on your practice squad. They're playing 45 ahead of him right now.
Yep.
And I'm not obsessed with what I've seen out of 45. He's fine, but
Do you want to try the last name or no?
not even going to try. Uh,
Agbagbiamia, right? That's
give it a
right.
clear pronunciation. Go ahead.
Agbagbiamia. We'll
Yeah,
see.
good job, Nick.
45 is better, but I tried.
But so with Sewell, dude, I have to think he's fine because again, draft pick breaks all ties.
Yeah, that's true. Do
But
you know what his injury is, Robert?
no, I don't.
I don't know what his or Martin's are, but they've been out a while.
Been on a long time. And I mean, when Karan Amignaji is jumping back into practice and
That's
you're
great
not,
news.
it's
Great
it's
news.
great news. I will tell you that one thing, Bears fans and also Nick Whalen, that I want to make clear. Karan's going to try to do something really hard because Karan's injury, from some of the people I've talked to, is a career killer. That you heard me say that. I'm not being light about this. It's a career killer. The only reason that there is optimism with Karan Amigdaji is because he suffered this injury a lot younger than most of the people whose careers it killed suffered theirs. So, can he repair rebuild? Good question. Once he repairs and rebuilds, can he then adjust to life at Yale versus life at the NFL? That's a whole other question, which that's a question that washes out plenty of healthy people. So we'll see. I don't know anything, but one thing that I can't help keep thinking, or I can't help but think about, Nick, is Amigdaji's awfully long. I don't know how he would work on the interior, but the Bears may try him at all of the available spots. We'll get there when we get there.
I'm gonna heavily disagree with you on this one. I saw Jacob, okay, Infante, everyone knows Jacob. He said something like that. And I just replied, I'm like, man, I don't think I've ever seen an offensive lineman try to play interior with how long his arms are. And I went through and I
I know
looked
what you
at
mean.
the Bears guys. I said, of the Bears like tackles, um, Darnell Wright's the only one that makes sense to kick inside. And then I went through all of their arm lengths. And then I went through like, okay, let's go through through the good guards in the NFL, like Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson, just like went through the list. All of them have like 32 to 33-inch arms.
Oh yeah,
Like I went through all the good ones. Grant's like 36 and change,
he's
and
super
Braxton's
duper
35.
tackly, like for sure.
Like that's what that he's made for this. Like I and again, this might be like crazy thing out there, but like, okay, let's say interior O line goes bad. You have to move somebody inside. I'd rather move Darnell inside. And then I'd rather have Braxton and Karan outside with the long arms. And because Darnell likes to get nasty and dirty in
Dude,
there. You know what
Nick,
I mean?
this is where you being the coach and me being more, I don't know, let's call it front office, like pro personnel kind of minded. I sit there and I'm like, I didn't draft this guy 10 to play guard under
Well,
any
it's not
circumstance.
long term. It's for part term.
I know, and I'm saying like, no, I will do anything else. He's a
I
tackle, which
did
is me
he.
being a little pig-headed. But honestly, dude, Nick, tell me sometimes NFL orgs aren't pig-headed about they
Well,
drafted this guy, or they paid this guy. They are
uh-huh.
simply going to play. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep. Or that's how you determine targets, like who gets the most targets in an offense or who gets more carries. I mean, but there are some, and I really respect some teams that they just like, nope, this is the best player, and they do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's some of the best ones, like New England, San Francisco, like they're not afraid. I mean, how hard was that with Trey Lance? But they're like, they cut bait.
I got to tell you, I think Trey is one of the funnier examples because the play we've seen from Trey Lance as okay, look, given that he was paid the number 3 overall pick plus 2 future number ones, his play has been completely irredeemable. I liked Trey Lance out of school. I I liked him. I thought that there's a lot of clay there. I thought his ideal space would have been to be drafted basically where Mac Jones got drafted, right? Like
Mhm.
middle of the first round developmental guy
Yep.
was my mentality of it. The moment that they signed Trey or that they drafted Trey Lance there, it was like, oh, the cart is way before the
Yep.
horse.
But
One thing you mentioned, I want to circle all the way
mhm.
back to, not to steal a Trey Lance comment from you. You
No, no,
talked
no, it wasn't it.
you talked about Tremaine Edmonds. That is one thing on his film that I think is always going to get him critiqued and praised in equal measure. The dude ignores the run. I mean, in any coverage assignment ever. I think he learned it in Buffalo, and then I think Matt Eberflus told him keep doing it. Just assume it's a pass and drop back into pass coverage as soon as you see the wide receivers release. Because man, he is late to every run fit, but then on play action, he's the only one reacting to the
Mhm.
pass concept where everybody else is playing the run fit briefly. It's funny. You want really sicko run defense? Taking any game where Tremaine is injured and you've got Sanborn and TJ Edwards, those guys are hellions at the line of scrimmage,
Yep.
and they're pretty good coverage guys themselves. But Sanborn will bite on play action, and Tremaine simply won't. So it's
Yeah.
another one of
Yeah.
those examples of little things that I think a lot of people miss within the game
Mhm.
of football that can
Mhm.
be as much of a boon as they are a bane. It
Yep.
just depends on the situation.
Yeah, and you almost wonder too if because I saw who is the guy who talked about it? I think it was Erlacher, was talking about Jay Cutler and like, like that season and people were like, "Is his knee really hurt? He just doesn't wanna
Yes.
play, they're losing." And Erlacher's like, "Do people not remember how tough Jay is?" Like, the toughest dude, like, took so many big hits, like, he's like, "We took him out of there because he was hurting us." Like, he couldn't throw off his front leg, and, but he would say, he's like, "Dude, I was in practice, and he would make all these throws," and I'm like, "How is he even doing that?" And remember Jay would like, "I can fit it in there because I have this ability."
Yes.
I am and circling back, I almost wonder if Tremaine is like, "I'll play pass first because I have crazy athletic ability to make up my run fit a little bit more," right? Being a little bit late to that, then no offense, TJ Edwards doesn't have that. So TJ has to play it how he has to play it.
TJ, or so I will not pretend that I am Tremaine Edmonds. I'm 5'5". I'm what it according to the doctor, I'm slightly overweight. Like I'm not an NFL football player. Like I'm trying to be as self-defamatory as I can so that I can say this, Nick. I empathize with all my guys out there that don't have great instincts. I don't know. I am not, again, Tremaine Edmonds, Jaquan Brisker, et cetera, et cetera. But there are some guys like TJ Edwards that throughout their sporting career, they can smell the right place on the field to stand, and they are simply there, right? Whereas I always felt like I was chasing the play very literally. And I was quick in the sports that I played, but man, anytime I tried to play ahead of the play, I almost unilaterally took a penalty for like an unnecessary roughness by hitting somebody who did not have the ball. Like it's
I see
a
what you mean. Yeah.
late hit or something where it was like in trying to chase the play, I generally made things worse
Yeah,
than
yeah.
playing a half step behind or a half step slow and trying to just make that up with speed. So for all
Mhm.
we know, Tremaine Edmonds could be following a coaching assignment. He could feel like he's in the wrong gap if he just jumps in there and doesn't want to be in the wrong gap. We don't know. We don't live in his brain.
I All right, but back on Robert talking about himself negatively, which I don't really love, okay? Was it today or yesterday your anniversary?
It was yesterday. It was
Yesterday,
yesterday.
congratulations, man.
Thank you. 7
Yeah.
years. And
Yeah, but
yeah.
you were a baby in those pictures, man. How young were you?
We were 22, 22,
Holy
23.
man.
Dude,
Holy
Texas, Baylor, evangelical, wonderful Christian culture. Like we were ring by spring, 7 years married, wonderful son.
Yeah,
And
man.
speaking of 7 years, okay, so I've been telling a joke since the moment that he's been born, right? Uh, where when Jonah was born, he's now going to be 2 this season. It dawned on me what a cruel trick it would be if Jonah grew up with the Bears being good, having no idea that they were ever awful for almost 30, 40 years. And what a segue to talk about Caleb Williams, right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, his talent is exceptional. And I feel like, Nick, the discussions that I've seen on Twitter are taking this, can I just say this first? Way too seriously. Like, yes, if we have to break out the yardstick and measure Caleb Williams against objective quarterbacking,
Mhm.
yeah, we're having issues from the pocket right now. Yes,
Mhm.
the offense looks out of sync. The run game is not helping. So let's
No,
mention that. They are
bad.
the run game, it has a couple explosives here and there, but it's a net negative whenever they run the ball outside of the rare explosive. So we're putting a lot on Caleb Williams. And in my opinion, Nick, I thought in this last game, he looked nervous. He looked like he was playing way too tight and too fast.
Mhm.
And I thought, especially as the game wore on, yes, even in some of the fun stuff, he trusted his own instinct for playmaking more than he trusted the structure of the play. And
Yes.
it worked.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It
especially
he's done it more. He's done that more than he's done the Shane Waldron offense, but I think is part of it.
it's messy. This whole conversation I feel like is messy because we're talking about somebody who has yet to start an NFL game. Yes, these are technically NFL games, but we don't have year 1 Mahomes. He didn't play. We don't have year
Right.
1, year 2 Aaron Rodgers. He did not play. We are
Mhm.
looking at something that, as far as any of the comps you want to throw at Caleb Williams, we don't have what they looked like because the guys he's being compared to didn't play in their first year. So I feel like a lot of people are looking for a year 4 quarterback. And I just want to say first, as we crack open this egg of conversation, Nick, you cannot fake experience. No matter how much you want Bryce Young to
Mhm.
be a coverage genius, that was just the funniest little scouting thing. No matter how much you say Mac Jones operates an offense really well, you don't you don't get to be a fourth year quarterback in the NFL until year 4. Like you won't have the understanding
Mhm.
that the guys that have been in the league longer than you have of how these
Well,
coverages
th-
work and where you're trying to attack.
well,
So,
tying two things together,
mhm,
Robert, just
mhm,
like that. That's exactly why I think Trey Lance didn't work out. When
agreed.
we go back and look at him from graduating high school to with the 49ers, he started one season and one game in college. That's a redshirt year and all the other years. And then you tie in, a lot of the other quarterbacks I think that don't do well. I mean, Mac Jones again had to wait and sit behind, and he started, I think, like about a year and a half. And that's one thing I'm concerned about a little bit with Anthony Richardson. It's really only been like 1 year, and like partial of 4 games last year. But Caleb has multiple years. I think that's one thing that helps. But one thing you're talking about is NFL defenses are different. And one of my favorite quotes, I know we have talked about this. Caleb said in his press conference, once one thing you've learned in the NFL, he says, our defense is really good, which means they're showing him things in practice, and that's why when Hard Knocks, it's him learning and he's behind or this or that. The defense is giving him different looks than you see in the Pac-12. You talked about the Big 12, right? Like they're not as good. Even as SEC is not what the NFL is. They're not bigger,
Not
as fast.
close. Not
Their
close.
rotations, they're not. I mean, the simulated pressures,
You
the pass rushers, all of it is different,
you
y'all.
drop Jonathan Owens into college football, and he's the best safety in the game. Like,
Yeah.
best safety in the game. He does not start for the Bears in the NFL. I mean, the difference in play speed. People listening, go back and watch any NFL preseason game again and notice how the game slows down as you get to the fourth stringers who are still professionals angling for a job. Like, it is crazy the difference of play speed even
Mhm.
within just the NFL.
Well, I
So,
mean, Brett Rippon has started NFL games, and he's crushing against third stringers. That's kind of why.
and dude, I mean, then you put Tyson against the third stringers, and after all the hand wringing about, oh, is Rippon better than Tyson? Tyson was flawless against the
Yes.
Bengals. I mean, am I allowed to say that? Flawless. The
The
dude
only
was
the
phenomenal.
only one was the home run was a little high. I would like it a little bit lower. Homer could have got it, but yeah, close to it for sure.
Oh yeah. And I mean, anyways, let's get back to Caleb. We could get distracted talking about Tyson later. It's just I think personally a little I don't want to say disingenuous. We don't need to go all the way to that. But with Caleb Williams right now, we are seeing sputters of talent and we're seeing enough production out of those sputters, I think, to justify the growing pains that come with trying to take somebody who can attempt anything and helping him figure out how to rein it in the right moments and then bring it back out at others. Right,
Mhm,
Nick? Like
mhm.
the complex thing, and I think it's the perfect example, Bears fans. So Caleb's throw to Roma Dunze, where he rolls out of the pocket and he lofts it over Rome's shoulder, and it's a beautiful ball, and it's exactly the kinds of things that Caleb Williams did at USC. He could have probably stood in the pocket and just ripped it to Roma Dunze,
Yep.
or he could have worked back across the formation and found, I think it was Tyler Scott, who had a window to where you could have threaded a ball to him on a route that kind of turned into a basic, which is a dig for those who don't know. Instead, Caleb Williams rolls out probably unnecessarily and lofts a gorgeous ball over Roma Dunze's shoulder. And Nick, you and I both know this is a results based game. When you hit the throw and you turn it into a touchdown, you can let a lot go.
Yep, yep. Well, and
Preseason or
and
not.
the other thing too is like, running the football and quick game concepts, they're not exciting, but that's the majority of football. People love the highlights and like the things that I'm probably most excited about from Caleb are the things of him buying time and trying to stay within structure and getting rid of things because I know the other stuff is there. Like you were talking about the one that he could have hit within structure, right? The other one I want to talk about, and again, y'all, we're going to be critical
We are being
and
critical
complimentary. We're,
to
we're going to
make a
do both.
point.
Yeah, yeah. The one that I think, because you talked about, I think he tried to stay very within structure early on and it wasn't clicking. And then later on, he's like, all right, I got this flow going and I'm just going to keep doing it. Is there was one when I think they went empty and he had Everett on, you can call it a whip route, you can call it a bit of a return route, whatever. He had him there, I would say, at about the 2 or 1, and I think Everett would have scored, and he should have thrown it. But he's like, I want to, I don't know, something different. I don't know. Can't tell you what he's thinking. And then he makes a good play, or I think that's when he threw away. But
It
still,
is when he
like
threw it away.
there's little ones like that where it's like, okay, that could have been a little bit better. And again, we're being picky. He's not going to be perfect. No quarterback. Patrick Mahomes isn't perfect, but it's just like maybe his mentality. Because we're trying to learn his game. Like, how often is he going to be out of structure, and how often is he going to be in structure?
I think I'm frustrated, Nick, because early in Patrick Mahomes' career, he was not a surgeon. Like he's had to learn to be one over 5 years in the NFL. Early Mahomes lived and died off of massive rip throws to Xavier or to almost said Xavier Worthy. Sorry, easy to confuse Tyreek Hill.
We'll see. We'll see,
Hey,
Robert.
just saying, I'm not calling Xavier Worthy Tyreek Hill because that's one of the best receivers in the game, but his ability to uncover deep downfield like that is going to remind some people of that. I
Yeah,
just think it's going to be hard not to. It's too perfect a matchup. Anyways,
he's fast.
getting distracted. The point being that Mahomes, Herbert, Josh Allen, all kinds of these quarterbacks, especially if they had a weapon, they anchored on something that they could do early to get them up to speed with the rest of it. And the only guy who didn't have that was Josh, who was just outright bad for 2 years until he solved the puzzle. But I'm trying to say that, Nick, because you look at that series in the end zone, right? The first play, Caleb Williams goes vintage USC Caleb. Naked bootleg, breaks down in that athletic stance that we've seen him, freezes the defender, gets all the way to the sideline. One thing, by the way, I'm so stoked about, Nick. I have seen Bears quarterbacks throw so many interceptions trying to make that exact play. And one thing I loved seeing from Caleb is that he knows he has to get all the way to the sideline to make sure that the path of the ball doesn't
Mm.
incur a bonus defender. It's a
Mhm.
safer throw than it looks because he's literally throwing it at the sideline. So he knows who is and isn't where, and then Rome's got to get his feet down. So
Yeah.
teammate mistake means no touchdown throw. Next play screws it up. Let's just say it, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Should have thrown early. Yep.
Kirk Cousins probably pegs Gerald Everett. Caleb Williams didn't love the window. We're still learning NFL Open. And then as he worked back across the field, time ran out, has to throw it away. Creates the next play where nobody was open. And Caleb Williams whips out his magic wand and says, I'm a little better than that, and just
Yep.
runs the ball in. So you get this perfect, I think, nutshell of what this Bears offense is going to look like. Caleb's going to screw up sometimes, and you're going to need the offense
Mhm.
to figure it out within that. And
Yep.
other times, the offense may let him down. But I do think they'll net some clunky, not always pretty points. Because so
Okay.
long as you can make massive throws downfield, like the throw he made to Tyler Scott, you're going to just keep finding yourself within range to do
Mhm.
something dangerous.
Yeah. So I've got a little rant here, and it's
Hit me.
positives about Caleb, but it's about a lot of little things that I think people miss. And you'll know this if you're in any kind of pressure situation. It doesn't have to be sports. I had one recently. Someone like braked and swerve in my lane, and like how like time slows down. I know it happens in sports all the time. Like things just slow down. You just kind of see everything, and you're not really thinking, but things are happening. And that's Caleb when there's people around him. And the one where he hit Rome in the back of the end zone, but Rome was out of bounds. My favorite part of the whole thing was he's rolling out, he's got a guy in his face, stops, goes back a little bit to get the defender to freeze or move, and then continues. Like he just knows how to be a little bit further away, even when there's stressful things going on. The touchdown that he ran in, some other small, like little things, is initially bought time. And he's got this weird thing where he can like glance down and look real quick at the rush and then and process it, but then get his eyes up to look downfield. So he did that initially. And then this is the part, Robert, where I think it's just next level, y'all. So he moves. The two guys dive at him, right? They don't get him. And he knew he's like, I'm far enough away. I'm not close enough where this is going to mess up. I'm far enough away. And they dive at him. And then your instinct. Okay, two people dive to tackle you. Your instinct, my instinct, Robert, your instinct probably. Most people listening will be like, "Hey, I'm going to run the other way. Like, get away from those guys, right?" He is like, "Nope, I'm going to circle back this way because they're on the ground and they can't rush me." So he circles back. Like that's the initially. He's like, circles back, has time, looking, processing. And then when he runs, this is the other thing. Like, because I watching Hard Knocks, that everyone's like, "Oh, slip and slide is fun," blah, blah, blah. Go back and watch that. Some of the other guys weren't doing this. Caleb was practicing tucking his arm while he's sliding. Like all the small technical details he does. When he's scrambling for the touchdown run, it's not out wide. He's got it tucked in his left arm up the left sideline. And then when he gets close by people, Robert puts his other hand over the ball to protect it, just like running backs do. All those little things. We've seen quarterbacks like Jordan Love fumbled last year, week 18. Remember, he just had it one arm and
Yep.
oh man, it came out. Like all these small things Caleb does. It's not a he's because we've heard all the character stuff. We've heard the people you know oh, he's arrogant, whatever. This guy works at all of these small little things and makes up this special talent. And we get to see it.
Absolutely. And then you get into what I think is frankly more positive, where people say, well, can Caleb play in structure? We didn't see a lot of that. And I'm like, yeah, we did. It just, the team is not super functional right now. DJ Moore got a perfect ball on a third down slant, and Caleb stood right in the pocket and delivered it. It just didn't mean anything because it
Okay, can
wasn't
I
caught.
talk on that?
Sure.
Okay, it wasn't a good route by DJ Moore. Okay, people have probably seen things or heard things, whatever. Here's one thing that bugs me with that, Robert. No one has brought this up. So it's in this area. When you're in this middle-ish area, it can be a body catch, an under, or you can extend out, right? Why did DJ not extend out to meet the ball on a slant that was at his chest? Because he waited to catch it and it got deflected away. Like to me, that's a small little thing. And I've seen DJ body catch a little bit more than I like. And it's like that would help out your quarterback a lot here.
Sure. I mean, I don't have a clean answer for you, right? I'm telling you that when I'm looking at this preseason tape, Nick, my greater point is if you want me to drill into it, sure, I could act like I take this more seriously than I do. But CJ Stroud in his first two preseason starts had a pick and a handful of completions for less than 60 yards. Is anything Caleb's done from a backyard football perspective signaling that he's definitely going to be able to do this against the Titans? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know anything about Jaden Daniels. We don't know anything about Bo Nix. We don't know. It's good, I think, to see that Caleb Williams has taken one sack in 22-23 dropbacks. That is meaningful because, frankly, I thought he would take more. His pocket awareness has come up a level. I
Yep.
also think it's great that in the preseason, Caleb has already realized that Caleb Williams might play too fast sometimes. My favorite example of this, Caleb had a play in the drive where he ends up scoring, right? I believe it's the play before the Roma Dunze massive throw down the sidelines where he avoids a sack that I really don't know if maybe I won't say this about often, especially when it comes to arm talent stuff, Nick, but I think the guy who gets around Braxton sacks most quarterbacks in the league. I think he
Oh yeah.
sacks the absurd majority of quarterbacks in the league. Caleb works out of it. Settle your feet and then throw to Keenan Allen.
Mhm.
Instead, he throws on the run, trips over himself,
He
and the
does.
ball goes awry. Just it's okay to take a breath. I'm glad he's trying to play at NFL speed, but there were a couple moments like the sprint out early and the throwback also early to Gerald Everett, where you could
Mhm.
tell that Caleb was, it was as if you could feel him hyperventilating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I don't think Caleb, Heisman winner, played in a lot of important games in college, showed us in his first preseason start that he's got plenty of calm demeanor. It was anything other than jittery. I'm just not worried about whether Caleb is not big enough for the moment or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So I say all this, Nick, to say I think we're going to look back at this and say, hey, remember his first preseason starts? Look at that. We saw some of the Caleb magic. And how far has he grown from the other stuff? Because I'll tell you what, Nick, if the offense is actually sprint outs, nakeds, and throws to Gerald Everett, I'm going to call for Waldron to get fired. Because, like, that's the other piece, right? Like, I'll get to
I
that in a
mean,
minute.
no, you're right. I mean, to me, like the purpose of preseason is just like, okay, we got to get out the rust, get back in the flow of it. But also, it's like you just want to see a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like you're not expecting perfection. You're not game planning perfection. The other team isn't as well. It doesn't matter in terms of quick game or rollouts or deep balls. Like that's the thing. I mean, I know we want to see the highlights. We want to see some things. It's really just getting loose and just getting used to Soldier Field. That's the first time playing on that surface. It's the first time playing in front of the crowd. Like that's part of this whole thing. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, like, I mean, I'm with you, Robert. Like I'm excited because the plays are like, okay, I saw that USC. Now I get to see in the NFL. The
Yes.
other part is like, it's not the regular season yet. So it's okay.
And shocker, you've got plenty of people, really good analysts like JT O'Sullivan, that are looking at all sorts of play calls and saying, this is not it for me. And don't get me wrong, the Bears offense may not be good, but Nick, there was this moment I had about 30 minutes into his latest breakdown where I kind of like the light bulb popped in my head and I was like, sprint outs, Hank, Y cross off play action. These are very normal, like high school, universal football. We barely have to install this kinds of plays.
Yep.
These are exactly what you would roll out in the preseason. And who's the one getting the ball? A guy who might be the fifth option. You've got DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet that basically didn't take a snap on Saturday. We think they're uninvolved. We think all of a sudden with
Right.
DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen that it's going to be Gerald Everett that they're going to run the entire attack through. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm coping because to be honest, I've been pretty unimpressed with what Gerald Everett has done on the field so far. But I also think, Nick, this looked to me like an offense that was trying to say, okay, Tyler, Scott, what can you do if we
Mhm.
need a little more out of you? Okay, Gerald, what can we expect from you if we ask you to run return routes and stuff like that? Because when they're giving Cole the ball, he looks natural. I mean, suffice to say this, Nick, Cole looks like he's practicing these routes. And I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
Gerald is too.
I
But
mean, if you look at it though, Robert, I mean, it's e- everyone got like at least a target. It looks like they're like, okay, let's like, my big thing as a play caller is I always want to think of players, not plays. Like,
right.
okay, who can we get and kind of spread it around to? I mean, because Swift got the big screen last week, right? So if they're like, okay, he already kind of got used to his rust, and we're gonna do this. And back to your thing on, keeping it vanilla, like a basic preseason offense of these concepts. I'm helping out at a high school this fall, and I was at the scrimmage that we had last week. Let me tell you, it was the most basic of basic. I mean, I think we had 5 different offensive plays, and we ran the same thing with varsity and JV, and it was boring because you don't want to show anything for your week 1 opponent. Everyone knows this, so like I'm not concerned about the play calling until week 1.
And I'll tell you this, Nick. Again, this could be cope. I could be getting lied to. I want to just open the door for anybody that thinks that we sound like delusional Bears fans for whatever reason you want, right? Especially because the other thing that does not help, Nick, is that Bears fans have been through Mitch Trubisky, who the media pretty much universally hated. And so the Bears fans really got charged up about they're all wrong about our guy. But then you also had Justin, who the media was generally pretty happy with. So
Mhm.
every time Justin Fields had a highlight, people lost their mind. So when Caleb Williams is out here pumping out highlights and people are losing their minds, I don't blame anybody for saying, haven't
Yeah.
we been here before? I mean, this is a 45% completion percentage. And I understand I'm telling you to calm down about it. But if you're there, I hear you. But also, Nick, we're getting report after report that Caleb in the joint practice session played really well. And you've got Bengals people saying the dude looked like the real deal. And
Mhm.
also, internally, these guys, every time you give them the mic and you give them a basic softball question, Mercedes Lewis, why is the passing game going to be successful? Because we got Caleb Williams throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin Byard, what's different about this team? Caleb Williams, that's what's different. Like you got
Mhm.
veteran guys that keep mentioning him. So forgive me. until I get week 1, 2, 3, 4 reason to be outrageously concerned. I'm going to trust where the vibes seem to be going right now.
Yep.
You know what I mean,
Yep.
Nick?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right on there. And then to continue with that is in his press conferences, like Caleb, and again, that's kind of the character piece, and I'm with you. I'm kind of done with that one. The other one is the processing piece because that's the number one thing with quarterbacking. Him walking through plays, I'm almost like, "Caleb, maybe stop doing this." Like, but he's just walking through, he's like, "Okay, no, so the safety just kinda sat a little bit," or like, he's still walking through like we're in the quarterback room, and, like, and I've been used to that because, I've been in that for many years. Okay, what are you seeing? Okay, where are your feet? Where are you trying to go with the ball? Like, all this that's regular quarterbacking stuff. But the public doesn't need to know all this stuff all the time, and you don't need to tell your opposing defenses what's going on either, right? But him going through all that stuff and remembering it just lets you know that he gets it. He's locked in terms of because there's some guys they're like, I'm overwhelmed, or I can only read half of the field, right? So him being able to do the whole scan, the whole read, process the rush, look down quick, then look up and know where the coverage is to me, he's got that part of it, which is, I think, the most concerning for any prospect. Can they process all of the mental information? Is it a blitz?
I
Did the
agree.
coverage rotate? What's the leverage on the outside? All those quick things while remembering, hey, I have to take the snap, fake this, go back. There's a lot to remember. And he's doing that, I think, so well. He doesn't need to tell us all the time in press conferences, but it's fun for, I think, all of us to hear.
Okay, Nick, I'm going to play a game with you, right?
Ooh.
We're going to call it the worryometer, and it's on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
What is your worryometer reading on Keenan Allen?
Is 1 high or 10 high?
1 is low.
Keenan Allen, I'm at a 3.
Talk me through it.
So, so the Keenan Allen concern is, let me think here. He's 230, and now he's big and not fast and can't run routes. And if there's one thing about Keenan Allen we know, and this is from, and again, y'all, I've been doing this a long time. I scouted Keenan Allen out of Cal, liked him there. All of the years that I've watched him, he can run routes. So I think the concern is, he's not being an all pro right now. One, it's the preseason. And two, I don't think he's looked terrible. I don't think the routes that he's run have been, Keenan, this is what you're going to do the regular season. Like, hey, this is an option route. Here, I want you to do this. I think he's just he's run a lot of divides, which is splitting two safeties in the middle of the field, and he's had Tampa 2 or something. The one on the sideline, he's the slot, and he's got to beat outside leverage to a corner route. It's near impossible. He would have to cut off very short, by the way. So the things that people are concerned with, I'm not concerned because he's in the guy that doesn't win with speed. This isn't Tyler Scott. This isn't, or he's a 6'2" guy that wins with quickness and smart leverage because he knows what to do.
I do think a lot of the things that they're running don't favor Keenan Allen's style. I mean, you did not trade for Keenan Allen to not run option routes. Can we be so
Mhm.
real? You're gonna run Keenan Allen option routes. And I don't blame them for not wanting that on tape because you don't want to give away what his options are and aren't. So you end up where the big one that I have, Nick, is I do think Keenan Allen's got to get a loaf. I've never given one out on this podcast, but Keenan has to own that he drew an intentional grounding foul. Like, why did they take intentional grounding? Because he didn't fight through the corner, and Caleb's throwaway doesn't look like a throwaway because there's absolutely nobody there. You can't just stop on a route like that. Caleb needs you to even just be in the zip code. But he's Keenan Allen, 6-time Pro Bowler. Is he washed? Dude, maybe. It's possible. But I'm not going to pay any attention to it until he gets locked up by a Titans corner or a Texans corner or a Colts corner because he's been money in the regular season. Maybe he doesn't have it in a situation where he's bumped to the second or third option. The other thing, Nick, that hadn't really clicked in my mind until a friend of mine mentioned it is we probably want Keenan Allen to get phased out of this offense, which is a brutal thing to say. But
Yeah.
we drafted somebody number 9 overall, and we extended somebody else. Keenan has to become the number 3 at some point. That's
Mhm.
why you drafted Rome. So
Yep.
I don't know where my worryometer would be. I think a 3 is about right.
Yep.
Now I got to ask you your other one. Where's your
Well,
worryometer on Nate
okay.
Davis?
Hold on. So I got one thing here on Keenan. So he played 13 games last year, and he talked about he could have played the other ones, but
Mhm.
he's like he shut it down because they weren't making the playoffs. He caught 108 passes in 13 games. Like, if he fell off a little bit in production last year, then I'd be like, oh, okay, the decline's happening. And what you're saying, it's possible for him to decline. It is because he's
It is.
32 years old. But it's weird when you catch 108 passes in 13 games, which over 17 games is probably like, I don't know, 135, 140, something ridiculous, something like the NFL lead. And then the next training camp or preseason, which again, I haven't heard any concerns in camp. Have you? Like of him, like, wow, he just can't get open against anybody in camp.
I was
I've
about
I've
to
heard I've heard
say,
Jalen, but that's
outside
it.
of the self admission that he hasn't caught a pass against Jalen Johnson,
Right.
I haven't heard anything. But I also wouldn't expect, to be honest with you, a bunch of Bears riders that are gassed up about how this season's going to go to start immediately writing about how Keenan Allen's not separating. Like,
Mhm.
I I'm sure it's a little bit of both. But I mean, to just use the obvious here, Nick, we haven't seen Jamar Chase separate in Bengals camp because he hasn't been there. Like,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of some of this where it's like, why are we worrying? Well, because we put something on tape and what was on tape wasn't good, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's preseason tape. There's truly different standards for everybody.
Well, and Robert Keenan doesn't play in preseason like ever.
I know.
So
Where is your worryometer on Nate Davis?
Nate Davis. Well, I'm biased because I'm carrying the flag. I'm probably at a 3 with Nate Davis as well. Um, so we do need to talk through this one. So it went the rounds. Nate Davis, Chris Jenkins, a guy, by the way, Robert, I mocked to Chicago so many times in round
He's
2
good.
because I liked him. I wanted him. I was thinking like him, Billings, Dexter, that'd be a nice little rotation, and Pickens can be the fourth. Um, but so he spun on him. Now let's talk through the play because I don't think that, again, you can clip and you can screenshot a lot of stuff. So the play was a fake jailbreak screen to Roma Dunze, and then you have two fake blocks, and then they're running basically seams. One's a wheel and one's a seam. And so the initial is Caleb's going to get it pump, and then honestly, I think Caleb kind of came too close to the blockers there in the pocket. It was a weird awareness from him. Like, why are you so close? And then he got sacked. But if you watch, so on every 4-man rush, the center's got to pick a side. Okay, which side am I going to help on? And Nate was left alone. And so he didn't have any help. It was just him versus Jenkins. And versus a screen, you would quick set, and he quick set. So the difference is, y'all, Nate Davis, most time, 5-step drop, you're gonna go backwards, right? Pass set backwards and punch and then catch and then pass protect. A quick set is you kind of jump at the D lineman and don't give him a chance to do much of anything. And he did. He got him, stoned him. And then the second thing Jenkins did was then he went outside and then spun back inside. So he got him on the second move. But by all that time happening, Caleb should have thrown a touchdown to Dante Pettis. He was wide open. And he kind of came closer. Now, again, I'm not saying it's great to get beat on the second move. It's not. But to me, it was enough time. And honestly, I've seen this technique, by the way. I watched who is it? Jim McNally. If you get beat, you honestly you become like a rebounding and you box out. And Nate Davis tried it. So like, I mean, half got beat. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying it's a good rep, but like Braxton Jones got beat inside and Tevin Jenkins was the help there, and they both missed him, and Caleb got at pressure too. And Coleman Shelton messed up on the screenplay. And Tevin Jenkins false started. Like people mess up in games, y'all. Like this, and in the rest of the game, I saw Nate Davis playing okay to solid. He's rusty. He hasn't played much football. Remember, he's been injured with the groin. So to me, the worryometer isn't high, but I feel like Bears fans, they're doing this. Oh, let me just wait. Oh, look, there it is. Get him off the team. I literally saw that. I unfollowed someone, Robert, that said that. I'm like, "You're done." Because it's not objective. I wanna learn on Twitter. I don't wanna see objective hate. I wanna cheer on the Bears and be like, "Oh, yeah, you should have played better." When you watch the all 22, you're like, "That actually kinda makes sense to me."
I feel like there's this weird thing going on right now, and you already know it's happening. Same thing just happened with Justin Fields. But a lot of the people that used to critique Justin Fields for it are not doing this with Caleb Williams right now, where Caleb has an astronomically high time to throw. We got
Mhm.
to own the fact that Caleb's TTT is like 3.68 seconds. And
Yep.
to keep for frame of reference, Bears fans, Patrick Mahomes has an abnormally high time to throw season after season after season. He clocks in about 2.9 time to throw on average. Now, it
Mhm.
won't surprise me, Nick, if a normal game plan is going to have some quick throws that are going to bring the average down a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's just
Yep.
my guess, right?
Mhm.
But at least right now, there are way too many plays where Caleb has an option and wants to push the envelope a little. That's not
Mhm.
me hating. I love the talent. I think he'll settle down. I think this is
Well,
the part of the process that guys like you and me who looked at Caleb Williams, we said he is so used to doing this. It will take a minute to rein this in a little
mhm.
bit,
Well,
but he can.
another part with it too, Robert, like, if we're being completely objective is, okay, they played against the 2nd string D line, right, with
Hmm.
Cincy, and then, Ed Oliver left pretty early in Buffalo. So,
Hmm.
the amount of high-end pass rushers that he's had to navigate in the pocket hasn't been there either. So, like, there are negatives with it. I completely agree with you.
Oh yeah, but I'm really more trying to just say that I'm surprised that Caleb hadn't gotten sacked up to this point. Hey, it's partially a massive testament, truly, to Caleb's pocket awareness and pocket mobility, which we've talked about a lot on this show. Caleb is doing a lot to avoid his own problems. But if something's open, we gotta throw the ball.
Yeah.
Especially if
Yeah.
they're open in the end zone.
Mhm.
And if you need a perfect example, look no further than what Tyson did later in the game, where Tyson just played on time. Left one of those balls, you said this, I think you had me nailed on this. Left that ball over the middle just a little high. Like it had to be a sick catch to bring that thing down, but obviously he painted Dante Pettis a couple times. I don't know what happened to Travis Homer. It looked like he'd never caught a football before in his life. You know what I'm talking about? Like the throw to the flat where he just
Yep.
waves both his hands at it, and I'm like, Travis, my
Mhm.
guy, what
Well,
happened?
you know another one, a perfect example of this, and I thought this, so I'm curious if you did as well. Late in the game, I think it was the last pass that he had. The Bears were up big at this point. I mean, 'cause, I mean, he had 2 touchdown drives. They're probably up 24-7 because I think Rippon led them down to a field goal or something. Um, there was a play action, and there was a tight end coming leaking in the flat, and Tyson was coming around, and he had someone deeper, at least a deep cross or corner,
Mhm,
and he chose to hit the flat. I think it was Bates, and the Bates just got blown up. It was like 2 or 3 yards.
mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, why didn't you go deeper there?" But in my mind, you don't ever turn down free yards. You're like, "Okay, cool. Thanks for the free yards." Just like, let's just keep doing this because this is easy. You stay ahead of the sticks, things get moving, momentum keeps going, and things were still good. Because I think later on the drive was still successful because you don't always have to make the huge play, which I think is part of what you're getting at.
Well, that's the thing. It's life in the NFL as opposed to life in college football. I know this is going to sound corny, but Nick, we are talking about a player who is going to have to learn he's going to have to learn one way or another that this isn't USC. You don't have to score a minimum of 35 points to win a game. You
Mhm.
don't. And that means you make different decisions to get you further down the field. Now, it's funny because the Bears defense right now is pitching shutouts. Like
Yep.
we could wax on and off about how well the Bears defense played. I will say, Nick, if we don't get to much of the Bears defense, it's partially because in this last game, they cheated a little. You're talking about the Bears
Yeah.
starters against the
Yeah.
Bengals second string,
Yep.
and boy, howdy, did they look like it.
Yep.
But hey, you need to see your guys rise up and smoke them because a couple of years ago, it was the Bears' second stringers against the Chiefs starters, right? With Chase Daniels that pieced up Kansas City way back when. So
Yep.
it does happen the other way. But, anyways, all this to say that like you're talking about, there's there's a lot to this. I think
Mhm.
NFL style. You want to talk about other things we haven't seen? There's no way you drafted Caleb Williams and you're not throwing quick wide receiver bubble screens like one of the ones that got
Yeah.
faked in that play. We have not seen one of them because Waldron
Mhm.
doesn't want to give away which formations to watch for them from. So there's tons of stuff coming. It won't shock me at all if the week 1 game plan is quite different from what we saw in the preseason. It'll also have to be because Big Jeff Simmons, number 97, is a little better than most of the
Good.
pass rushers
He's
that
good,
we've
y'all. You
seen.
got get ready for him. Yeah. So one thing I want to pivot to, because we've talked a lot about Caleb. We talked a little O line. Um, Rome. So
Yes.
they're and like Rome catching the ball, contested outside shoulder was a good ball. I mean, that was great ball, but still like catching that isn't easy. Especially like a little bit of his like flexibility as a big guy isn't always uh a thing. But he did well there. But the one thing that surprised me with Rome, and again, like on film, because he's not the most wiggly, agile
No.
guy, because he's bigger, but he looks pretty good on that reverse, man. Because and the best part about it, he got the reverse, and there's a guy that's kind of there, so then he has to widen a little bit more, and he did well. And I was like, you think of a reverse, you're like, I'm gonna go have a reverse to Valus or reverse to Scott, but a reverse to your 6'3" wide receiver doesn't always happen. It was like whenever they would do those sweeps to Equinemius, and I'm like,
Hmm.
what are you doing? This guy's 6'5", but it worked out pretty well. So I thought that was good. I thought it was a good showing for him. I know he was out of bounds. He'll learn from it. But again, he got open. Remember last week, y'all. Okay, we had this discussion. Scramble drill. He ran front pylon. Where was Rome this week? Back pylon. That's learning. That's not making the same mistake.
Yeah, now we got
So
to keep our feet in bounds.
yeah,
But
yeah. That's the next step. Like he caught it too. So, but to me, like there's growth there and there's excitement because again, we've talked about this, Robert. Caleb. Rome's the ninth pick. Like we should be talking about him a bunch and we're not. But I was excited from what I saw from him. Even some routes. Remember last week he got stoned. This
Mhm.
week I thought he's better with his routes.
I did too. And I mean, that can't be shocking. Anybody who's ever done a job ever or played a sport ever knows the difference in how fluid and fast you are doing literally anything, Nick, when you stop thinking and start doing.
Hmm.
And Rome's
Hmm.
still at the point in his career where I wouldn't be shocked if he is doing a lot of thinking. I mean, an NFL jam is different. An NFL corner is stickier. It's all a lot more complicated than it was at Washington, especially when we look at what Jalen Polk is doing in New England and reminds you that that Washington core really was as stacked as it seems. And so I can't help but look and see Rome as a receiver that's frankly more explosive than I think people realized he was at Washington. And he's big enough that, like you talk about, you mentioned Equinemius. Why would you not give it to him? That guy's your sniffer most of the time. You can't just give it to Tyler Scott because the whole motion is to threaten some what do you call it? Like split flow inside zone kind of thing
Oh,
where
I got you. Yeah. Okay, you're right.
you're
Yeah.
threatening the guy or a receiver motioning across the formation
It's
and
it's like throwing to big dog. Oh, they threw to the guy that blocks all the time.
yes, exactly. Where it's like that end around comes from, hey, Rome's in motion because he's gonna block. Just kidding, he's got the ball in his hands.
Mhm.
Gotcha. And it's part of why Equinemius was able to turn in a 40-yard rush during his time with the Bears.
Yeah, I
It
remember that one.
works.
Yeah.
It's a good concept, but it's even better when it's Rome Odunze doing it as
Mhm.
opposed to ESB. So I'm happy to see him come along. I know I'm gonna sound like I'm chomping at the bit here. I'm kind of having like an old Yeller moment, which is a really sad way to put it, but I'm being blunt and
I mean,
trying to be
you're
funny
referencing a
about it.
movie before you were born, Robert. I'm proud of you,
I
man.
know, but like you gotta hope, don't you, that Rome. I know JT talked about this, but you gotta hope that by the middle to end of the season, Rome has played his way into a lot of the 12 personnel looks, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like you gotta hope that he kind of displaces Keenan Allen. Like
Well,
I
but in 12 personnel looks, you don't want Keenan out there anyway because Keenan's way better in the slot. You know what I mean?
Keenan has been
Like play.
blocking really hard in the preseason. Kudos
Yeah.
to number 13. He's been putting his nose in there even during the preseason. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, just play people to their strengths. All right, I got kind of a hottest take. This will be my last one. Okay,
Ready for it.
and again, me and Robert, y'all, we talk on air, we talk off air, we text. Okay, I got to apologize for something I was wrong on. Okay, Robert was right and I
What?
was wrong. Okay, I really like Ian Wheeler, Robert. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where my take's going to come in. I've been very pro Bayless making the team. Okay, because
Oh.
he can do a lot of different stuff. He's not a natural runner. I know it's new. He's trying to figure it out. But dude, Ian Wheeler is tough, makes good decisions, caught the ball and immediately transitioned and got really good yardage there, runs the ball, makes good cuts, breaks tackles. And then I kind of like what I see from Simba Webster. And I wouldn't mind him making the team. And so you put those two guys there. One's a better running back than what Valus is doing. One, I think, is a better receiver than Valus is. And Simba can be the punt returner. So to me, I would almost rather those guys make the team. And again, I know at 53 you have to make it work. And Valus walk than trying to make this square fit the round hole that we feel like we've been doing for a long time.
So I tend, I'm going to respond to that by starting saying that I feel like I'm going to end up being a bummer in this conversation. But a lot of it's because my opinion is second to my ability to try to read the tea leaves in a lot of cases. If I think I've got a decent read on what polls would probably do, then I'm not formulating my opinions around it. But like Nick, for instance, I would have thought Ian Wheeler, after 2 touchdowns last week and a fun game, would have gotten work any earlier. Any
Yeah.
earlier. I mean, the fact that he didn't bump up is, I think, a very bad sign because you're not going to get many starters this next week. A
Hmm?
Thursday game? Are you kidding me? Neither team's going to want to play any of their starters. It's just too soon. Football's a giant car crash. You don't want
Yeah.
starters going out there.
Well, but
Basically, yeah.
here's my question though. Would you rather keep Travis Homer or save
Oh,
1.7?
I'd cut Homer. I'm not.
See?
For me, I look at Valus, for instance. Everybody talks about all the things that Valus doesn't do. Valus is a decent punt gunner.
He is.
Valus is a kickoff gunner. Valus does a lot of the dirty special team stuff that
Mhm,
you actually want somebody on your roster to do. And
mhm.
I'm with you. You need a punt returner, and Valus can't do that because he can't track the ball in the air.
Yep.
You definitely want a running back. Like, you want all these things.
Mhm.
But it's funny because are you really cutting Valus Jones, who, say what you will, there's something there when that
I
guy
know.
touches the
I
ball,
know.
compared to Webster, who nobody's going to claim? I like Webster. I do. Mostly because he's in the right place at the right time. But I don't think anybody else is going to want to teach Webster their offense because that's generally the kind of guy that's going to get picked up off waivers. So you could probably have Webster on your practice squad and keep Valus and probably get Wheeler to the practice squad at this point.
Well,
I'm not
who's your sixth receiver then?
at this point. I cannot believe I'm saying this. I never would have expected me to say this,
Oh,
but
you're doing Dante Pettis?
there's a former second round pick that is wide open all throughout this last game, and he caught 2 touchdowns. So if you're
You
trying
can't
to
use
have,
second round pick when he's been cut by multiple
oh, I
teams.
agree with you. I'm more saying that stupid draft pedigree thing always follows you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Where's Kevin White right now, Robert? Come on.
he
Top
got
10
4
pick.
chances. Kevin White got picked up a lot. And so it's
Pettis, but I think Pettis looked bad as a punt returner.
I agree.
You know what's so weird about that, Robert? You go back to his history in college. He was one of the best punt returners. I mean, he had like 7 return touchdowns or something crazy. And he has not looked good as a punt returner in the NFL. It's baffling to me. But anyways,
Dude, the NFL's
Pettis,
hard.
because Colin Johnson's hurt, and I just don't know if you look. And the issue is people are saying we don't have separators. I'd rather have quicker guys because you already got Rome's tall, Keenan's tall, DJ's, 6 foot but thick. Like I'd rather have a quicker guy.
Like Pettis.
Webster.
Well, yes, Webster, but Pettis does the Bellamy thing to give you a pull from. It's
Oh,
not that far
Bellamy.
back,
I liked Bellamy.
but like, well, you probably liked him for the same reason I did. Separating is hard, and Josh Bellamy was nearly always open. Now he
Yep.
couldn't catch the ball any better than
He
you
was
or me,
fast. He was
but he
fast.
was open. And so with a guy like Dante, dude, I don't know. I can't say for sure what the Bears are gonna do, but it it dawned on me as he caught 2 touchdown passes, which, yeah, 2 touchdown passes makes you turn around and go, "Oh, are you a dog?" But it reminded me that he's a veteran, and
Yep.
you've got a rookie quarterback, and having veteran presence is gonna be helpful. Feels so
Mhm.
boring as I say something like that. Like, let me use an example here, Nick. The Bears have a massive game coming up next week against the Arizona Cardinals. It's very winnable, but they're down 2 receivers. So they've got DJ and only DJ, and they're going to have Tyler Scott or Dante Pettis playing a wide receiver 2-3 role alongside Cole Kmet, who is healthy for the game. Which of those two in that game do you think is the more versatile receiver that could be your third option?
Between Scott and Pettis,
Between Scott and Pettis.
I am gonna say Scott. I know you want me to say Pettis. I think Scott because Pettis, he's a little bit bigger. I get that. Y- You would have stuck somewhere at some point over time. I mean, because you go back to I know Justin threw a touchdown to him, but you've had opportunities as the second
Oh
round
yeah.
talented guy, and you haven't done it. How many years? Like, I mean, how old is he now? Let me look here.
He's got to be 29. That's my just thumbing the read.
He's 20. He turns 29 in October. Like to me, like there's no future with that.
I agree with you. I really do. I'm not even hating on Scott. Right now Scott looks like a little bit of a one-trick pony. And you know what? It's a useful one trick. Uncovering deep. Like, we love it.
How old do you think Webster is?
Webster is 30.
He's 28.
Is he seriously?
I thought he's younger, but still, I like him. I don't know,
He's been
whatever.
battling it out. I think Webster's a grinder. Like, you're never going to catch me saying a bad word about Webster because he's been hanging around on the practice squad for so long. And I think that that's awesome. I really do. I more just am sitting here. I cannot believe I'm campaigning for Dante Pettis, who I have to take a minute every time I'm about to say his name because Jacob Infante came up with a meme name that I'll never be able to get out of my head. And anybody who knows what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, and
I
that's not a bad descriptor of the way
can
that Dante plays. So I'm not really advocating for somebody who I think is great, Nick. It's just that in that moment, with Tyler Scott literally on the field, Tyson Bagent thought Dante could do more as a primary receiving weapon. And at least in that moment, I agreed with Tyson. I thought Tyson looked like he was right.
yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's hurt, only DJ, whatever, right? You have to trust Tyler Scott,
Uh huh.
Dante Pettis,
Uh huh.
or Bayless Jones as your wide receiver too.
Uh, as the wide receiver two,
Mhm.
probably I would probably try to get the most out of both Pettis and Scott, which I understand is cheating, but I'm trying to basically say
Yeah.
underneath receiver and mid-level receiver, I think Dante's going to get me more than Tyler is. But Tyler working deep and in yards after catch scenarios, I think is going to do more than Dante is. So you ask the two to be
I get it.
role
Yeah,
players in
I
that
get it. Yeah.
setting. And that's the other piece to Pettis that as I sit here and think about it, you're probably keeping Valus. If you're keeping Valus, you are kind of wasting a receiver spot. So if you're
Yeah.
really going to walk into the season with 5 viable receivers, you need your fifth guy to be able to wear a lot of hats in the receiving room. And Pettis, at least compared to the guys they have, can do that. Could it have been DeAndre Carter if he'd played? Could it have been
Mhm.
Colin Johnson if he'd gotten on the field? But
Right. Yeah.
they didn't. And so, given the guys they have, I think the more interesting one, if we are going to tease, because Nick and I have a 51-man or 53-man roster coming up at some point here. My question is, does Daniel Hardy make the team?
Right. Right. Because that's tough when you look at all. Because I've done this. I put one out, and it's tough because there's a lot of and y'all, hats off, right? Little respect. Ryan Poles, man, we got a talented roster, y'all, and this is gonna be a tough. Years past, it's like, oh yeah, these guys easy, and
Hard to
maybe this
not
fringe
feel talented when they
or
lost. Didn't they win the last two games by like 40 combined points?
yeah.
Like
Well,
hard to
I'm just
not
saying.
feel good.
I'm just saying, like, remember last year? It was like, okay, hey, they earned the number one pick, or year before, and it's like we need to create spots because we can claim and get the top guys claiming. That's not how it is now. Now it's we got too many good guys. Like DN's going to be tough because I like a lot of guys. Linebacker is going to be tough. Another one, Robert. Okay, because you talked about Daniel Hardy. What are we doing at corner? Because I
I know.
like a lot of corners, man.
Mm-hmm. I
Jalen Jones. You got obviously, I mean Blackwell. I like him a ton, but then you have someone that's always been around and always done well in Strowman, and I'm like, you have to decide between those guys, and I
if
don't
I
want to. I want to keep them all.
if I had to guess, Strowman's getting cut. I need to actually go through my 53 to figure it out. But if I had to guess today, they got Jalen Jones a lot of work at slot, and if I was the Bears, I would want one guy that could be a hybrid nickel outside corner so that I could save a roster spot and use it for one of these edges. That's how
Yeah,
I'm feeling.
I
Like
mean, Blackwell's making it for sure. He's
that's
looking
and
well.
Blackwell's the one
I
that I
think.
think Strowman's pushing off, or the other way
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Strowman's the one Blackwell's pushing off, especially because kudos to Terrell Smith, dude. I still don't know if he can break with anybody, right? Like Terrell Smith is not the kind of guy that on his tape can run a basic and be particularly competitive on it. But when you hit blitzes the way that they have, and when so many outside routes are just running straight down the field, number 32 is playing some really good ball. We love it.
I'm like shedding a tear inside, man. Look at you, loving Terrell Swift. I'm gonna say this though, Robert.
Hey,
Okay.
you play well. I'm gonna acknowledge
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Here, so live, okay, and this is me, y'all, all the time, and again, super critical coach, okay. Hey, you should see me at the scrimmage. I'm like yelling something like, do it," like during the play, right? He picks it off. He's going right, and I'm just saying, cut inside, and he does it. I was like, oh, he could have went. If he would have cut inside, he had a chance.
there's
But he's like, he doesn't have the hips.
there's this part of me when it comes to DBs. I think about this a lot, Nick. There is a disproportionate number of NFL fumbles that come from NFL DBs trying to rekindle the glory days of when they were the punt returner and the wide receiver and the DB all on the same
Okay,
high school field.
let me challenge you on this. Okay,
Okay.
how many receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, linemen, one, are good at pursuit angles, and two, know how to tackle? Because that's where a lot of touchdowns come from because they don't know how to do a lot of that.
Well, I agree with you. I know. Like, it's not as if the offensive players are great defenders. It's more that when you see the DB cut inside, they expose the ball
Oh,
more
yeah.
often than
Yeah, it's
not
loose. Yeah.
because they don't know how to carry it. So there was a part of me that thought the same thing. And then there was another part of me that was like, nah, take the ball and step out of bounds.
Yeah,
Like, you
I
can't.
remember Ed Reed. You remember Ed Reed held that ball?
Ed
Ed
Reed
Reed could
is
do whatever he
different.
wanted.
You're Terrell Smith. You're not Ed Reed yet. Like, that's light.
Anyways, that's what I was saying. So you're okay with him going out of bounds. I'm okay. I want him to cut inside. Bears fans, okay, we're about to wrap this up. Me and Robert getting some debates in here. I want you to do something for us, okay? The YouTubers. I want you to comment which receiver do you want him to keep? Do you want it to be Dante Pettis, Robert's boy, or do
Ugh.
you want it to be Simba Webster, my guy? I'm
Don't want it
curious
to
what
be
they have to
Robert's
say.
boy. The problem here is I want to make one more thing clear is the coach part of my brain can't get out of my head. Maybe it's the scout part. That Valus is exactly the kind of guy that you could win the Super Bowl with a jet pass to, where he just walks into the end zone because he was completely forgotten about, and you score a critical touchdown because he's had the juice. That's not a question. And in the right piece, he's a great, or in the right situation, he's a great chess piece. But man, dude, that situation starts to feel harder and harder to deploy the more ways that he keeps showing he can't stick doing something else. So
Yeah.
if Valus was cut, I want to make this so clear. That's not that weird. The Bears are really working and have been to try to get what they can out of him. But while he's not a natural running back, he is running up the middle. There are some wide receivers that simply wouldn't do it. And
Yeah.
Valus is running up the middle. And he has a couple good plays throughout the preseason. So, dude, I don't know. Like, if you got to week 11, would 11 weeks of sitting in the running back room fix things like tripping over your quarterback on the handoff? I don't know. But
Here's part of it for me, okay? Who's the person he's compared to the most, Robert?
Cordero Patterson.
Okay. Again, this is a long ways, and a lot of people don't, know a lot of my history, but if any of you have heard of Matt Waldman, okay, a long time ago when Cordell Patterson was in college, one of my first articles, you can go check it out on RSP, his site there. I studied all of Cordell Patterson's tape, every tape, Robert, because he made guys miss all the time. And there's a variety of different ways, but he just had this sense. I'm like, dude, he's so big and makes so many guys miss and jukes and spins and stiff arms and break tackles. Like he just has, it. So I studied all of them. And then I studied, Tavon Austin and Robert Woods also in that class to get a baseline. There was only one time, Robert, he tried to move his initial move and didn't make the guy miss. Like it was like special,
Seriously.
right? Special. Guy never learned a position ever.
No.
Ever. They tried him here, there. Like it was so weird. Like he has this awesome skill set. And he can never play a position. Velus Jones is 27. 27. Learning it. I mean, Hester, right? They tried receiver. It was okay, I guess, right? Younger. You're 27, man. Like at some point, someone had to figure it out. And we're talking about ages. He's 27. Sim Wepper is 28, right? Your boy Pettis is 29. Like, honestly, they're about the same age.
Truly.
They're not. I mean, they're not young. It's not like Dante Pettis is gonna figure it out. Man, he's a second round pick now. He's just amazing. Like that's not what we're doing. We're trying to figure out what's gonna help the Bears and like in these roles. And I get it, but I don't think we're ever going to count on Velus Jones to be a good running back or to figure out routes over the middle or down the field. Like, I just don't think that stuff's going to happen. I understand that the jet sweeps or the screens and all kind of stuff, but like, to me, we need to be realistic about this transition and like how much growth is even possible for a guy his age.
It's a weird, I think, paradoxical relationship almost. Paradoxical may not be the right word. I apologize if it's not. But you catch a lot of NFL coaches clearly betting on, man, but when he gets it right, it's so good. Forgetting how many downs the Bears lit on fire trying to get Cordero Patterson to run the right slant. Like, you had so many first, second, third downs that CPAT lit on fire because he did not know where to go. And it was way too obvious when you flexed him out that you were throwing a screen to him. Whatever it was, you had a bunch of plays where it just you tried too hard to make it work and it bit you in the butt. And so I don't know what they're going to do with Velus. They spent a third round pick on him. Yes, there's a time and a place to cut bait, but you drafted him to be fast and he's still fast. So what do you do with that? I don't know. Does it make a difference that he told stories about ferrets? I don't know. Like,
that press conference was so unhinged.
That was unhinged.
It went on so long and like so many details. And he's like, here, listen to this spot in college game day about my ferret. Like, it was like, what is going down an alley? Michael Pittman keeps the car running. Like, what are we doing?
That was crazy. That was really wild.
But part of it to me is like, and again, we're not in the meeting rooms. Like, how is he as a learner? Like, even on Hard Knocks, him asking the guy, hey, I still have to kneel it. You're a returner. Like, this is what you do. I'm just so concerned with him. Like, I know previously I had the epiphany, Robert, because at this point, this team's going to be good. I think. I'm not going to say Super Bowl. Yeah, competitive, sure. I just don't want a guy out there that's going to mess up all the time. And I don't think Pettis is going to mess up all the time. I don't think Webster's going to mess up all the time. But I think Scott's learning, and so is Velus. And having both of them, honestly, like I want one developmental guy, another guy I want something like I just don't think Pettis and Webster are going to mess up a bunch.
I get that. I mean, you're not gonna catch me fighting you on it.
Yeah.
If Webster makes the team, I'm not gonna say, "Oh man, I wanted Valus." I'm
Well,
gonna say, "Wow, I really thought it was Valus."
how about this for a question, Robert? It's week 11, like you said, right?
Yep,
Running backs are all hurt, and you have to start Ian Wheeler or Valus Jones at running back. Who do you start?
probably Valus. I got
Wow.
week 11. I got 11 weeks to try to teach him how to run some basic stuff. Yeah, I'd probably start Valus right
Wow.
now. I like Wheeler a lot, but I haven't seen him against the second stringers. Like, there was a point I remember where I got very hyped up about Ian Wheeler. Then I went back and I watched him again after having watched a bunch of the third stringers, just hard cut, and was suddenly watching the fourth. And I was like, oh, he is quick, but he is not as quick as I think he is because he's playing against a bunch of guys that cannot
Yeah.
keep pace with him. So there's a balance to it all. I don't know. I really don't know. Because at that point, you're legitimately looking, Nick, at all your running backs went down. You may sign somebody off the street.
Oh,
Like,
for sure. Yeah.
you
But
may
to me,
bring in
like,
a. Mhm.
there's a part to knowing how zone blocking works and cutting off of it. Like, to me, it's not about, how fast you are. It's about it's about being Frank Gore. Frank Gore could be in the league forever just
Right.
because he understood the concepts and how to do all this stuff. Like, I just don't know that Bayless is ever going to get there where I'm like, okay, we're going to give this guy 18 carries this game and it's going to go well. Because I could see him breaking one because he goes out wide, and then a bunch of other ones where it's like, you missed the hole, stuff like that.
In principle, I agree with you. In practice, they've given him a roster spot for the last 2 years. So
Yeah.
they might think that they have something, but also the offensive coordinator that was involved in drafting him isn't here anymore. So
Mhm.
he's got less of a hedge of protection than he probably used to have. And so that makes it more interesting, doesn't it? On
Hey,
whether he'll make it.
so all right, I got one more question for you. I know we're trying to get out of here. Zach Pickens
Uh-huh.
is 100% chance he makes the roster.
I think so. There's just not enough beef in the middle. Like, are you
Yeah.
keeping PJ Mustipher?
No, to me, like I don't know if you keep Coward and you bring in someone else. I don't think Pickens has played poorly. Okay, don't get me wrong. I went back and watched. I think he's been okay. But if you go and you acquire a D tackle, because you could, I just don't know because you keep talking about Robinson's a fifth round pick and like picks that we've made. At what point is Poles going to cut bait on any of our picks? I don't think Pickens because he's too young. I think he's going to get a little more play. It's only year 2 for him. You said Valus is a round 3 guy. Robinson's a round 5 guy. Do you see him getting rid of any of his draft picks? Like, is Doug Kramer gone? Is Elijah Hicks going to be gone? I mean,
Actually, I bet you Kramer is gone. Funny you
okay.
mentioned that. And we did see him jettison, what was it, Kendall Williamson? The seventh round pick, who I didn't even realize was cut until he hit a bear like late. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, I didn't realize
Yep.
he was on the Bills now.
Yep.
I'm with you in spirit. I think it's a good thing that you're starting to beg the question because the Bears have let a bunch of their draft picks go. Like they didn't fight for Zach Martin when Zach Martin, or was it Zach Thomas? I'm not remember the name very well.
Yeah, there's like 3
And
I think it's
then,
Zach Thomas.
but
Let me look.
I got a number for you for Zach Pickens that I think is the reason he makes the team. You know what that number is? It's 64. There's no way they cut pick number 64 in his second season, no
No,
matter
that's
what.
I'm just talking in theory. I'm not
I
I'm
know.
just if him getting rid of a pick,
I'm
not
being unfair to you, but basically saying they they have not done enough, in my opinion, to basically get. I don't think they've done enough to give Zach Pickens competition, if anything. Like I would frankly argue that there is opportunity to upgrade your defensive tackle room that they aren't taking, and they're not going to take, even at roster cutdown day, because they're going to say we have Zach Pickens. I think
it
we've
was
got.
it was Zach Thomas, by the way.
Thank you. There's a linebacker that got inducted to the Hall of Fame right afterwards. I think he was a Bronco named Zach Martin that I had never heard of in my life. Because that's just I don't
Well,
know that
Zach
part of the
Martin's
NFL.
the guard in Dallas too.
And maybe man,
Well,
enough of these
you know what's
Zachs.
interesting. I know we're like going on tangents now. Is he has gotten rid of some guys? Got rid of Travis Bell, although we loved him last year. Williamson, you said. You go through that draft class, his first one. So you got okay. I mean, round 5: Braxton, Dom, Rob, Then it was Zach Thomas
Hmm.
gone, Ebner gone, Kramer, Tyree Carter, Elijah Hicks, and then another guy gone, Trenton Gill. So
Carter
maybe I'm
might
being
not make
too.
the team.
Maybe
Carter
I'm.
might not make the team.
Yeah, I'm too critical of polls. Maybe he has cut bait with guys. He's like, oh, this guy's not going to help anymore.
He's cut bait with some of them. It's also worth remembering the roster's been really bad. So there's not been a
Mhm.
reason to fight against Ryan Poles. The main thing I see with Pickens is that I personally believe that when you're drafted top 100, you realistically get 2 years of total and complete safety. You have to be a massive issue, I think, to get cut after getting drafted top hundo to.
I just want to see more. Don't you want to see more?
Yeah, of course I do. I'm not.
Like against second stringers, he should be doing work.
Well, I think he's in the super below Nicholsy like body type thing where the Bears have identified wanting to make him a one technique, even though I think his body was better built to be a three technique. And
Oh,
so he's kind of just caught between. He had a couple of decent run stuffs, but he also has had a couple plays where he has been jammed off the line, and it's not been hard for the offenses to work through him. So I don't know. I truly am not about to. I feel like, Nick, I'm doing a lot right now of stumping for they're gonna keep Zach Pickens, and you're saying, why do you think he's good? And I'm saying, I didn't say that. I
I think they're going to keep him. I'm just making fun of polls. Um, Man, I got to get away from this page. I'm looking at all the past draft classes, and all the Bears haven't kept guys, and that's why they're not good now. Is there anything else that you want to chat on?
Let me see. I realistically think that it's funny. Preseason is a great window. It's content, right? Like I could wax on and off poetic, but preseason is really, why do we like it? Because we get to see the Bears jersey run around. We get to see, especially this preseason, a whole bunch of Bears touchdowns. Does Stephen Holder really matter for the greater health of the Chicago Bears? No, but he's been the dude this preseason, and he's got into the end zone a bunch. And
Mm,
I think it's so funny because then we'll work ourselves up and we'll massively praise Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, etc., because they can string a couple of 5 yard outs together. And then, shocker, it doesn't work in week one. Week one is going to come like a robber in the night for a lot of these rookies, probably Caleb included. The difference is Jaden Daniels, at the end of the day, is playing on the second worst team in football, or at least the former second worst team in football. I mean, dude, Nick, they don't even know if if Jahan Dotson is gonna like be a thing
that's
this
a
next
shock.
season.
I love Dotson coming out. I've heard
Same.
that news. I'm
I I
shocked.
was shocked too. And also that means that now they have the trifecta: a bad defense, a bad O line, and only one receiver. So
Yep.
I hope Jaden Daniels is a good year.
Well,
But
yeah,
it's
and then the
funny
tight
because
end is Zach
what
Evans or Zach Ertz.
right? Is he wait, is he a commander?
He's there, and I like Ben Sinnott. I like him, but he's a rookie.
He's a rookie. And so I think what's funny about the preseason is I remember almost every year, Nick, the teams that I don't pay attention to hit week one and look about like I expected them to. Would I have thought that if I watched all their preseason tape? Probably not, because teams just look kind of weird in the preseason.
Yeah,
Some of them look great. The Bears right now look amazing. They're probably not going to keep looking this amazing. But they start against the Titans, and the Titans have looked really awful. So
I saw a clip earlier today where I think it was Taj Washington. Did Seattle get Taj Washington, Caleb's receiver at USC?
Miami did. Miami picked
Okay,
up Taj. I can't remember if they signed him UDFA or if they drafted him. I think they
like
drafted him
seventh round.
seventh round.
There was some like fourth on the depth chart in Seattle for fourth stringer beat um um Sneed, the corner for the Titans, L'Jarius Sneed,
Oh boy.
for a touchdown. I was like, oh, like yeah, I don't care that they got Jamal Adams and whomever else. That team is not, the defense isn't good for sure, besides Jeffrey Simmons. So, um, man, the biggest thing, man, right now, there's two things. I'll end on this. Tyson Bagent, y'all, gives me such confidence that he's grown as a quarterback. Because he audibled to that Pettis touchdown. He got to his third read to get Tyler Scott. Like all those things. Like if something happened to Caleb, which we hope it doesn't happen, but that's why you have a backup quarterback. I would feel confident putting Tyson in right now. Like that makes me feel good. And the other thing, Robert, I did not expect for me to publicly apologize about Ian Wheeler and then you to reverse and say you don't like him now.
I don't say I
didn't
like
see the
him.
heel turn coming.
I'm worried. Okay, like I don't want to be. I am always going to carry with me that I thought Ian Bunting was flying out of his tight end stance, and he was uncovering with ease, and he looked legit. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a vertical threat tight end. You just don't find these often. Oh my word! And then he got cut, and he just disappeared. And I learned the hard way that all this, like when the coaches are playing him, that stuff matters a lot. And so
You're reminding me of younger me so much, Robert. I
right?
love it.
I mean, and so I carry that with me. And within that, I think it's so funny because what I think I'm trying to say, Nick, is I think sometimes the preseason can distract us from the fact that our priors have not been proved or unproved, and they won't be until actual games happen.
Oh,
So
yeah.
all the things that we anchored our priors on, none of them have changed and at all. And so maybe we're a little more confident in Dexter, but if he gets blown up in week 1, we'll look back and we'll say he got blown up. This was a mistake. And the big one, the big one, the big one. If the starters sit now, okay, no more preseason action, then they should all get to week 1 healthy.
That's what I was going to bring up. That's the best part about preseason. We haven't had any, knock on wood,
I mean,
major injuries.
I would knock on wood, but it keeps disconnecting my microphone whenever I do it. So,
I mean, like, unfortunately, the thing that happened in Minnesota, like Josh Downs had a high ankle sprain in Indianapolis, so he probably won't play against us. So you go through the list, man. We've been relatively healthy, and the guys that have been questionable, like even I had a little worry about Montez Sweat, Robert. Like I know he's ramping up, but he missed quite a bit. Like, and then I saw him in the preseason, just enough, right? I'm like, okay, he's fine. Like, shut him down, get everyone back to 100% healthy. Then let's go in week 1. Like, yeah, that's all I wanted in this preseason game. This last one, I was like, just stay healthy, and they did.
I shouldn't do this because we're deep enough in the podcast where I shouldn't bring up one more conversation topic, but I want to ask you something, okay? So Brandon Fiske, remind me, is he the one who just got hurt? No, there's an Atlanta guy that just got hurt. It wasn't Fiske.
You're thinking Braylon Trice. Fiske is the D tackle with the Rams.
Okay, what I'm trying to figure out is I know a lot of people are really high on the Rams this season. Why are they really high on the Rams this season?
Because of the offense.
But what about that offense is so I like Matt Stafford as much as the next guy. I promise, guys. Is this not a thin offense held up by a coach we like, a quarterback we like, and a young receiver with massive medical red flags that made it all the way through last year healthy?
Well, yeah. Well, he had a lot of them in college, but also Cooper Kupp.
I was talking about Puka, who
no, I know, but I'm saying
finish a
also
BYU season.
Also Cooper, because is he ever going to be back to himself?
Well, exactly. What I think I'm asking the question on, because every time I start thinking about it, Nick, I go, okay, so the Bears play the Titans, and the Titans don't look great right now. Maybe they'll surprise because they've got actually a lot more talent than people want to ascribe to them, right? Like you took a shot at it, but L'Jarius Sneed plus Jeffrey Simmons plus Jamal Adams been in the league for a hot minute, plus Harold Landry on the defensive line.
Adams is terrible.
He's been terrible. I'm actually, I regret bringing him up.
Keep going though. They've Arden Key, his suspension.
They actually loaded up pretty well to the point where they're going to bring out more tools, I'd say, than the Colts are in that first game. They just got Will Levis starting. And we don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but we're assuming it's bad. The main thing, though, is, Nick, okay, so we've assumed that they'll lose to the Texans. There's no sense in assuming that. If the Bears are who we think they are, then maybe it's a 20% chance they win, but that's still 1-5. And crazier things have happened. But it's specifically the Colts game where you've got Anthony Richardson, who's just in this tight spot where he hasn't played a lot of ball.
Mhm.
Like, and that's never easy. And then you get the Rams. We've talked about it before. The Rams circadian rhythm should work against them. It's really early, and it's still in the early months of the season. I don't know, Nick. I'm just looking for the part where all of the house of cards falls, right? Like this feels very good. The Bears are getting through and they've got a lot of good answers. And my favorite part, we got two preseason starts where at different points, pretty much everything went wrong for Caleb Williams and he still figured it out, figured something out.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I'm sure the season won't be that easy. I'm sure the season won't be 3 straight 20+ point wins or something like that. But I'm really upbeat. I'm trying to be grounded, but I'm
I know.
very upbeat.
Well, and it's also tough too because when you look at again, the Titans might not have Hopkins. The Rams at one point, y'all, 4 of their 5 starter O linemen were hurt. Puka's hurt. You go their defense.
Is Puka hurt right now?
He has a week to week knee. I'm not sure if he's back or
That's
not.
like not
Their
good. That's
their
not
their,
good. If we
their
were saying
corners.
DJ Moore had a week to week knee, we would be freaking out.
Yep, yep. Well, especially the history of Puka too. Like DJ doesn't have the history, but he does. What DJ had the ankle, then came back the next day and had the touchdown against the Bengals in the wet practice.
Right.
The Rams corners are Travarius White. They signed after the Buffalo's like, okay, this guy's not it anymore. And Darius Williams. I mean,
They're a ramshackle young team. Like,
they lost Aaron Donald. That's the other thing. They made the playoffs. They lost Aaron Donald too.
yeah,
Yeah.
they only lost the best defensive player in football. Like, that's the thing, man. I'm looking at the Rams specifically, and I'm like, I think this is a McVay and Stafford halo that we are putting over a team that, by all accounts, should not be outrageously successful.
If
They're not
if,
bad. They're
if you
just
want to if you want to
vulnerable.
like make like no like and I don't know if this happens. If Caleb doesn't throw for 300 against the Titans or the Texans, okay? Maybe he does. I don't know. He's doing it against the Colts. That's the worst secondary in the NFL.
They're gonna play some bad secondaries. I mean,
That,
if
that,
that's the
they
worst
have, they have,
secondary, it's like,
can
dude,
can
I
you name any of their DBs? I know they have Kenny Moore.
come
That's
on.
obvious.
You're about to tell me that the Commanders secondary is better than the Colts secondary? That
I mean,
Commanders secondary is awful.
at least they spent a first round pick on somebody.
Who Forbes? Who they
Yep.
benched? Like, I don't think he's starting.
He's better than Juju Brents
Uh, I liked Brent. I
because he has
don't
long arms.
didn't watch a lick of him in the NFL, so he might suck. But at Kansas State, I liked what Brents was doing. I thought Forbes was fun too, but anybody that's a major weight like outlier like that, you just have to circle and be like the tape, but and then you
So,
circle
so,
it.
so here's the Commander secondary. We're so off the hinges. I love this. They have Mike Sanders still as their nickel, who I like.
He's fun.
Okay. They signed Michael Davis from LA as a physical corner. They got Ben St. Just and they got Forbes. Okay. Then strong safety, Jeremy Chin.
Man, was that just like a free agent pickup? I guess it
Yep.
was.
Yep. And Quan Martin's their free.
It's said with so
That's
much
better than the
passion.
Colts. The Colts is bad. I'm just telling you, y'all, 300 yards against the Colts is like
That's
lock it in.
dude, that's the thing. Is like I feel as if we're almost getting gaslit, right?
I'm
There's
dude.
some times where I keep hearing people talk about, yeah, and then when the Bears are 3-6, like people will look back and they'll say, we always should have known because of what Caleb did in the preseason. And I'm like, where's the scary on the Bears schedule? Like I don't look at these teams and see a parade of difficult opponents. The Bears could easily go 0-4. It's the NFL. Crazier things have happened. But dude, if we're getting run on by the Titans and the Colts and I mean, even the Rams are a respectable team to lose to. And then, as if that wasn't easy enough, you go Panthers, Commanders, Patriots, Cardinals, Jacksonville after that. Jacksonville's medium scary, but dude, you have real people on Jaguars Twitter right now asking the question about whether Mac Jones is better than Trevor Lawrence right now. This is not trending well for
No.
the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so I
And
just can't help but sit here. Bears fan, if you are hearing me clear mindedly, let me spell out what Uncle Rob is trying to say. I think these Bears could end up massively overhyped, overrated, and it'll put you, the fan, in a very weird spot because you don't think your Bears are that good. But they keep winning games. And every time they do, Caleb has a highlight or two that's all over Twitter, and Dov Kleeman and Ian Rappaport and Pat
don't
McAfee
quote Goff. Come on.
mean it.
The fake one?
I'm talking about the aggregators. Like, I'm talking about all the social media is exploding about Caleb Williams, and every YouTube video is just like people writing the word elite to try to get clicks, and it's working because you're going to keep clicking on them because you're going to be stoked, and you're going to have the question of like, is any of this real? And we're not even going to know. You're not going to know until we get to Green Bay.
Well, yeah. So that's week 11. So
Yeah.
it's the 10th game. How many wins do they have at that point?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I don't want to say.
I mean, it could be 7.
It could be 7. It may be 3, but it could be 7.
Yeah.
Like, and then as if the thing wasn't getting better and better, now you're talking about potential health problems in Detroit, which if they're pretty top heavy. If they lose just about anybody important, that team takes a massive blow. And then the Vikings are already so hurt that they're in a death spiral. So, what is this going to look like? I mean, this could fold really badly. But let me ask you this, Nick. We're at the hour and 46-minute mark. We got to close this up. So I'm going to pitch it to you this way, okay? The absolute worst happens. Caleb Williams separates his shoulder, and there's major ligament damage. He's done for the season in week 4. How many games the rest of the way do you think Tyson in year 2 wins with the rest of the roster?
Seriously?
I am asking you seriously.
6.
Only wait, okay, so that's 6 across the rest of the way. And what did you
So
have?
you said
before
after
that?
4. So Carolina, Washington, New England. I'm giving those 3 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
One of Jacksonville, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Splitting with Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the other games.
It's funny. I think he might take 2. And then if he does, now you're talking about if he takes a 7th game at that point, Tyson Bagent wills the team into the playoffs, and now Chicago Sports Radio is going to go.
Seattle. You never know how the games go, but I'm confident in Ty.
I will always worry. I'm going to pick against the Bears every time they play Green Bay until they beat Green Bay. It is entirely a trauma response at this point.
I've talked about they're set up so poorly because Green Bay has a bye week right before them.
Yep.
Like it's like the percentages are going to be no matter what, even everything is equal. It's going to be 55% Green Bay is going to win that game because they're rested and they're more prepared.
I agree. And also, the Bears are cursed. But the good news is, Nick, is that for as naturally down as you're going to get me whenever I bring up the Bears Packers, I'm not even looking at the camera. I've been looking at the camera every time I talk about the Packers because it just feels so bad. I feel so good about whenever the Bears play the Lions. Screw the Lions. Like the Bears, we got their number on.
What was the first Bears Packers game that you remember?
The first one that I remember was the Bears being the second win over the Favre team that lost 3 total games, 2 to the Bears and 1 to the Cowboys. I think it was like 2005. And what I didn't know at the time was that the Bears were awful that season. They just beat the Packers twice or whatever it was.
Okay. I mean, same quarterback. I remember like the first Favre game. So it sounds weird, but he's in the NFL that long. That's how far back I go. So I mean, because I was born 85. I mean, you I vaguely some of like the 90, but like you start like 91, 92, 93. I start remembering those seasons. So I just say that because there was a time when there was no fear, Robert, of that team.
I'm sure there was. And then the Bears went 5-25 in 25 meetings. They're 0-10 in their last 10. I mean, I've seen Bears fans, well-meaning Bears fans, get absolutely torn asunder on social media because they dared puff their chest out for their Bears leading into a Bears Packers game. And I am in my little nuclear winter bunker waiting out the
So
storm until the Bears finally win even one.
the
Even just
last,
one.
I'm trying to think of this, the last Heisman Trophy winning Bears quarterback. I think I know who it is. Do you have a guess?
The last Heisman winning Bears quarterback.
Mhm.
Uh, I think it goes too far back for me. I
I think it's
think
Danny Warfel.
that's what I'm saying. Like
No, Danny Warfel's like 90. Let me look.
that is too far for me.
Danny Warfel Heisman. Let me look. I think he won. I thought he won the Heisman. Now I'm not sure he started a Bears. Yep, won a Heisman.
Okay, what do you think,
90. Where's he at here? He's a Spurrier in Florida.
Nick? We will truly end on this. What do you think would be the bigger Bears story? Okay, Caleb cracks 4,000 yards, which would be unbelievable. Or amidst any other season, it just doesn't beat 4,000 yards. He beats the Packers twice. In some, it doesn't even matter if he did it. He's just the starting quarterback in 2 Packers
All right, but
wins.
hold on, time out. In the 4,000-yard season, does he beat the Packers at all?
Let's say no. Let's
Beating the
say
Packers twice. Beating the
let
Packers twice.
let's say it's a 4,000-yard season. Just throwing this at you. It's a 4,000-yard season. Bears fans in the comments, I want to know which one of these you'd pick. Okay, so the 4,000-yard season is the season that you and me keep talking about, Nick. The Bears cook early with grease, except it's kind of sloppy football. The other teams are just sloppier. The Bears' defense is playing great. The Bears' offense is too talented to not score. And so they keep beating teams, even though it kind of feels clunky. It's like watching one of those fighters, Nick, where it's like they keep leaving themselves open. The other guy's just not counterpunching. So they win off of just sheer punches thrown. And then they get waxed by Green Bay and everybody cries about it. And then they lose to the Lions and then they beat the Vikings because the Vikings are just piecemeal at this point.
Yep.
And then they beat the Lions once, let's say, the Vikings again. They lose to San Fran, they lose to Seattle, and yeah, they quote unquote limp their way into the playoffs, and suddenly they're a fairly dangerous team. And in that, Caleb throws for a bunch of yards, and he throws for 4,000. Or, Nick, the other one would be it's a much grindier season. The Bears don't start super great, and they take a couple of injuries, so they get to the Packers game, let's say 5-4. They just win it out of nowhere. Like, I mean, nobody picks them. Like, but they, and in it, let's say Caleb even goes off. Like, Caleb throws for 330, 3 bills, and has a rushing score, like a Josh Allen stat line, and really has Bears fans just pounding their chest, right? They finish in this season, let's say 9-8, barely squeeze into the playoffs, just because I can't say one's playoffs, one's not playoffs. But so I'll even give you the 4,000-yard season gets you an extra win, but you beat the Packers twice in the other one.
It's not even a question, Robert. Like you could say the scenario of the Bears go 2-15, but they wax Green Bay twice, and Caleb goes for a 330. I'm picking that year.
That would scare me. I'm gonna be honest. If they lost to the Panthers, I don't know. Like, I don't want those.
I don't care about Sir Purr or whatever.
I
I
don't
don't care
care
about any of
either,
that
but I don't
stuff.
want those Packers fans to have, or those Panthers fans to have anything. They don't get
I'm
anything.
done with them. I'm done with like disliking them because I got the pick I wanted this year. I want Green Bay. Like
I
wouldn't
want
that be
pick number
even better?
33.
Like
Be a glutton.
how about this? it'd be worse for Packers fans because it's like, okay, the Bears go 9-8 and they beat us. They're like, okay, hey, yeah, they're pretty good. Imagine them losing to Caleb and the Bears if they're 2-15 and they're bad. But like, man, that team's the only team that beat us twice all year.
It
It'd
would
be
be really wild.
hilarious.
It'd be really wild. Bears fans, you let me know what you think. But Nick, you about ready to wrap up? You think we're good?
No, knowing us, no. I think we got another hour in us, Robert.
I
And
don't.
here's the thing, though. We have to ask something of people to see if they stuck with us this long.
Well, we did. We gave them a question. Which season do they want?
Okay, well, yeah, which season?
I
Yeah.
think that's a good one.
And add something else into it, like do that and like some kind of an emoji with it too. So that way, like we know you were like the diehard, like you were the 2-hour
Really yeah,
one
right.
of ours.
You really
Yeah.
made it. And then tell me whether you'd keep or cut Travis Homer. But
wait, like everyone's gonna hang on now. Like, man, they ask all these questions right at the end.
everybody's gonna say like, "I'll take the Packers wins," and I'm cutting Homer. Like, that's the comment.
Now, and you know, there's people that are like, why are people commenting this stuff?
Right?
Because you guys were the diehards.
And
right
also, you get a weird emoji. Don't forget the weird emoji. Go back and edit your
Yes.
comment.
I don't want like a face emoji. I want it to be like, like a pumpkin or like random stuff. You know what I mean? It's like Halloween. Like, why is this emoji going
I
on?
need a country's flag, but nothing offensive. No, nix the flags. We're not doing flags anymore. Do the pump.
On 2 hours, guys. After this unhinged, that's what happens.
Dude, Nick, thanks so much for hanging out. Bears fans, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure you like it on whatever listening service that you're listening to us on. Thanks so much for sticking with us. I'm excited for even more content when we actually get to the regular season. Like, this is kind of the warm-up stuff as we get all our things sorted. But until next time, Bears fans, bear down, and thanks so much for bearing with us.